features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A seemingly inauspicious start to the afternoon, but I promise you, I just watched that hornbill swallow a scorpion that was roughly the size of its head, and I am absolutely amazed. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is Jamie. This afternoon Fergus is on camera with me and we are coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Now, because this is a completely 100% live safari, you can send through your questions or your comments on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Now, I rushed through that entire checklist because I really wanted to show you the hornbill, but of course it flew off. I just watched it. Ferg and I don't even know where it found the scorpion. It was a burrowing scorpion. It was a glabrophon scorpion, which is one of the ones with quite a thin tail, quite big pincers, and they burrow. So I mean, it must have dug it up somehow. The fact that it can even fly amazes me. It's over there. Can you see it there, Fergus? That is our I don't know, glutton of the afternoon. He's still panting. I don't think digestion's happening all that well. He swallowed that entire scorpion whole. It was longer than his beak. I mean, those scorpions are large. They're big, fat scorpions. And he swallowed the entire thing. He got the tail off, and then he swallowed the entire thing. And at one point, I actually thought he was going to choke to death. I have a newfound respect for the digestive system of birds. The fact that they can't chew, they don't have teeth, so all of that grinding up of the food that they eat has to happen within the stomach itself. That was crazy. I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed I completely forgot what my plan was for this afternoon, which was actually to go off in search of a leopard that is also capable of eating roughly the equivalent of the size of his own head, but he's able to chew it before he does that. Right, speaking of leopards, Tristan is out this afternoon as well, and he's found some, I don't even know where I was going with that, thirsty warthogs. Let's go with that.
We have indeed, Jamie, not only thirsty, but I would say hot warthogs, because some of them are already jumping into the water and having a really good wallow. Now, it is a perfect afternoon for safari. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Sebastian, and it is really, really great to have you all along with us. Now, remember, this is an interactive experience, and you, the viewers, are the most important part of this, the largest safari vehicle in the world. So, hashtag Safari Live if you have any questions, or if you would just like to say hello from wherever you watching from. But back to our warthogs, because they really are quite cool to see in this sort of dry, wintry grass that's coming along. To see these pigs in the bright green and sitting there watching, and I know they're not really pigs, but the warthogs, we affectionately call them pigs from now and again, and in Afrikaans they're known as a vlakvark, which means a shallow pig, so they are part of the sort of hog family. But isn't that cool, amongst the green? And you can see they are so hot. It's about 30 degrees or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. And so it's a very warm afternoon for this time of the year. And that means that a bit of a wallow is perfect and in order to cool down and just get that body temperature down a little bit. And also will help with any sort of parasites that they have on them. Sometimes they'll sit in water like this and the terrapins will come along and they'll pick off all of the parasites that are on them. So the ticks and varying other little nasty things that are on the skin, they will get rid of those for the warthog. So it makes sense to go and wallow, and you'll find that they'll also sort of wallow around in the mud. So take care. You're saying you've never seen a warthog before? Well, I'm glad we can show you your first warthogs. They are very, very cool animals. I have a soft spot for warthogs. I know they're not the prettiest, but I've never seen them in the water. Sorry, take care. Well, in the water is even more fun. They love when they go into water, and I'm hoping that they'll start to roll around in the mud. It's always quite funny to watch them because they go with their bellies first into the mud, and then they sometimes roll on their back and they kick their back legs, and mud gets thrown all over the place. They'll push their heads into it, and it all looks like a big game when they do it. So I'm hoping that we will start to see that. You can also see that they're making use of the food source inside. They're feeding inside that waterhole at the moment, so they've got certain grass species that are probably growing just on the fringe that are still full of moisture and nutrition and are very tasty, and so that's why they're also wallowing to be able to get this. And now for these warthogs, they're not able to wallow in other bigger areas because of the fear of crocodiles. In a small little pan like this, it's going to be easy enough, it's shallow enough that they know that there's probably no croc inside there. Now, Shelley, you're wondering if they swim or if they will go in and start wallowing in the mud. Well, warthogs are not, I've never actually seen them swimming, to be honest. They mostly go into the shallow area and they'll sit in the water a little bit, or they go into the mud, and mud is what they're really after because mud sticks to the body and it keeps that body nice and cool, but it also encrusts any parasites, and so when they then come out and they rub on a tree, they're able to pull all those parasites off, much like the buffalo and elephants do. So it's more also to look after the skin than just to cool the body down. But you can see she's having a nice drink. So that's Mom over there. And Mom, you must have your hands full because you've got quite a big litter to look after. I didn't count exactly how many there were, but I think there were 7. I'm not sure. Did you see how many there were, Seb? No. 1, 2, 3, 4 that I can see there, but there was definitely more than that. So she's done very well to raise them to this size. They are now out of the most sort of dangerous period. It's that first 3-4 months when these piglets are tiny, and when I say tiny, they really are very, very small. They're almost like a sort of sausage dog puppy or a dachshund puppy, and so they are susceptible to so many predators. You'll find varying types of eagles, snakes, leopards, lions, even the smaller cats like wild cats and servals and caracals can be a threat to a little warthog. So for her, she's done really well to be able to keep these alive, particularly in this area, because she would have had to deal with Karula and the 2 cubs. Now, for those of you who are new viewers and don't know who Karula and the cubs is, that is a leopard female and her male and female cub that she's been raising over the last few months, or more than a few months now. They are almost 16 months old, so it's been quite a while. Now, it looks like our female is going to roll in the mud after all. Let's see if she'll do a full turn. Isn't that amazing? I love it. I love when they do this. They get mud all over their body. You'll find they sometimes even end up on their backs, feet in the air. She's done a good job on the one side. You can see the one side is covered. You've left a little spot on your tail. She's missed a spot. I'll have to do it again. But you do also see how alert she is. So when rolling, they know they have to be careful. Cordelia, you're wondering what the warthog will actually eat. Well, there are herbivorous animals, so they're eating mostly grass. They will also eat roots, tubers, small trees and forbs. That's what they're really after. They actually don't really eat meat. They will investigate a carcass every now and then. So I've seen warthogs walk up to dead impalas and varying other things and sniff at them, but they actually, and sometimes even mouth them, but they don't really chew and swallow. You'll find one of their cousins that does occur in South Africa, called the bush pig, is far more prone to eating meat than what a warthog is. So the warthogs tend to be more vegetarian based, whereas the bush pig will be an omnivore and eat both. But like I was saying now, you see how alert she is. She knows when she's like this and she's wallowing that she's susceptible to predation, so that's why she is careful, and you'll find she'll pop her head out. Oof, doesn't that just look good? I tell you what, Seb, I wouldn't mind being in there on a day like today. It is very warm in the sun. She looks pretty happy. This is very cool. It's not every day that you'll see this as well. Generally, warthogs are quite shy of the car, so to actually see them relaxed enough to mud bathe and wallow like this is not a common sighting at all. I would say you are well and truly covered. Turtle Walk, you're wondering if a dam is the same as a pond. Well, here in South Africa, a dam normally refers to something quite large, so a large body of water, almost lake-like. And sorry, a pan. Okay, a pan. Well, a pan and a pond, yes, very similar. So those two are the same. So sorry about that. I thought you said a dam, but a pan and a pond are pretty much the same thing. Pans are normally areas where for some reason there's been an erosion and there's ended up with a hollow, and animals have come in there to wallow in there. So you'll find first it's elephants and they start to dig up and they make it bigger. Then you find rhinos and buffalo come in and they make it a little bit larger, and eventually it gets bigger and bigger, and all the animals coming to wallow keep digging it out, and you end up with a situation where it grows and can actually collect water over a summer season. Generally, when we refer to a pan, we're referring to an area that will hold water from rainfall and will actually then probably dry out in the winter season, but can sometimes hold water through. But it's a natural sort of system that's formed that can hold water. Now we're going to stay with our warthogs a little bit longer because I'm thoroughly enjoying them playing in the water, but we do still need to meet one of the most important members of our team, and that is James Henry, who's going to be out on the bushwalk and going to show you many a magical thing this afternoon.
We are going to do our best to show you magical things, everybody. Hocus pocus, abracadabra, zimzilibum. Have you seen the magic, Craig? Almost. Good. My name is James Henry. Hello and welcome to this end of the Sunset Safari. This is the bushwalk part of it, and Craig is on camera today, Rexon on tracking duty, and I am going to draw you a map to begin with, because in order to explain where I'm going, I need to do that. That is the middle of our traversing, or that's the sort of border between Djuma and Arathusa. If you are a new viewer, we traverse basically 4 properties. They're called Djuma, Arathusa, Cheetah Plains, and Chitwa. The latter 2 you do not need to worry about. All you need to worry about right now is Djuma and Arathusa. This is Arathusa here. This is Djuma. Can you see all that? That is north over there on the map. Not in actuality. It's west in actuality. All right. So this morning, Shadow's tracks. Shadow is a female leopard who we often quite like to follow. Well, we always like to follow if we can find her. And her tracks with a cub were at the sort of corner, the border between Arathusa and Djuma, and they went into the reserve like so. The tracks of the cub ceased moving with her over there, and the leopardess carried on moving up like this, and she walked across into Arathusa and then came back down onto the road as far as we can work out. Now what we are trying to do is establish where she's gone from here. Has she killed, and is she going to go back and fetch the cub? Is she still on the hunt, and she might be resting anywhere in this block here on a termite mound or sitting on a tree waiting for the heat to move? She will definitely leave the cub for the duration of the day if she hasn't caught anything. And so that's what we're going to try and establish now. We've driven down here, and so we got out of the car. That's why we're a bit late. I'm sorry about that. And that's going to be our plan. Tristan, I don't know where he is. I think he's probably... Oh, I do know where he's going. He's going to Cheetah Plains, which is down here somewhere. And I think Jamie is looking perhaps for Tingana around Treehouse Dam over there. Do you feel the magic, Craig?
Very magical.
Very magical. Good. Excellent. So that's the idea. I just thought I'd better show you, because there have been a number of unfamiliar names, which is wonderful. A number of new viewers have been talking to us over the course of the last few days, and of course it must be confusing and indeed perhaps irritating even, hearing all of these funny names and not knowing where on earth we are and what we're talking about. Shadow's territory covers roughly the area that I showed you there, quite a lot further into Arathusa as well. And her territory probably covers an area of about 15 square kilometres, I'd say. Is it that much? Maybe 10 square kilometres, which is about 6 square miles, plus minus. And of course, she's now probably moving further into this area because her mother, Karula, has been missing now for, what is it? Must be close on 12 weeks now, which is a bit distressing. Okay, let's head back across to Jamie, find out how her search is going. I'm not sure if she's going to find Tingana or not. I don't think he's moved much during the course of the day, so maybe she'll be lucky.
Me neither, and I certainly hope that I'm going to be lucky. I don't know whether we're going to find him. I'm hoping we will. First thing we're going to do, or first thing I've done actually, is done a circuit around where he was last seen. And I haven't picked up on any tracks coming out of the area. And it's hot enough that he might have decided to settle in for the day. I don't know how hungry he was looking. Thank you, Chantal. That's exactly what I said. Now, he's not in there. The one thing is with leopards, of course, is that they do move around at any time of the day if they really want to. I've seen Tingana moving around when it was 40 degrees. So, there's no guarantees that he's still here. These vehicle tracks came in here. Where do they go from here? I'll figure it out. Looks like they go this way. Got to get around the mud wallows. And then James said he was in the... he left him in the shade in this drainage line that runs from Treehouse Dam. He's not at the waterhole. Now this must be the way to go. Except I don't see any vehicle tracks, Fergus. No, I do see vehicle tracks. There we go. That makes more sense. We've learnt in our years here, in the 2 years here, we know roughly where the big landmarks are. And James said it was where the big game path is before the jackalberry tree. The jackalberry tree is just there. Now let's go very slowly, because the sleeping leopard in long grass, sure, he could be right next to us. And of course Tingana is so comfortable with vehicles that he might not even lift his head. There's the big game path. Fergus, it's competition now. Which of us spots him first? James doesn't have faith that we're going to find him here. I do. And then Lex was the last person with him. He said a clump of long grass and some buffalo thorns, which admittedly isn't as helpful. Tingana. Oh, is that him? Or is that a log? Wait, hold on. I think it's a log. Or is it a leopard? Log or leopard? Leopard log? You're going log. It's not very spotty, is it? In fact, it looks very much like a log when you zoom in like that, except that's not where I'm looking. I'm going to check. I'm pretty sure Fergus is absolutely right, and it is a log, because nothing's lifted its head. So I'm going to send you over to Tristan to cover up for my embarrassment with a leopard log, and I'll catch up with you when I have an actual leopard, hopefully.
Well, Jamie, don't worry. It's just been one of those days. Slips of the tongue and lots of moments, but it's okay. I'm sure you'll find Tingana and all will be forgiven. Now, we're at Twin Dams just to see if there was any sign of any of our big grey large friends called the elephants. There's tracks coming here, but alas, no elephants themselves. But what we did find was our two hippos that have stayed at Twin Dams. I'm quite surprised that they're both here. I think the one is trying to mate with the other one, because as we pulled up, the one jumped on the other one in a sort of porpoising motion. So I think it might be a young male and female that are here, and who knows, maybe we're going to see some mating over the next few days. And wouldn't it be nice if we got a baby hippo? That would be very cool. We would obviously have to wait 8 months until we did get a baby hippo. It could also be dominance in terms of two young males trying to fight and just sort of, not fight, but play fight, and establish themselves as the more dominant of the two. It's very difficult to sex a hippo when you're just looking at its back, so I'm going to hope that they both put their heads out and I'll be able to see. Now, what's interesting with hippos is just their gestation period in comparison to some of the other larger animals we have out here. So we know that elephants have a gestation of 22 months and rhinos 16 months. Now, if you take a hippo and a rhino together, both of those animals are of very similar size. So you'll have a situation where they both grow to a similar weight and have a similar lifespan. The rhino lives slightly longer, but the gestation period for those two animals is vastly different. So in the rhino's case, you're looking at 14 months for a black rhino and 16 months for a white rhino, but here in the hippo's case, we're talking 8 months, so shorter than a human. Now, the reason why that is the case and why they have such a different gestation period is because the risks associated with a hippo as opposed to a rhino are far less. So a hippo only really has to worry about crocodiles when its baby is very small, and even then it's a very sort of negligible predator. In terms of the pod being around, they generally can protect their young one from a crocodile. Other than that, every now and then they'll come on land and maybe lions will be a problem or hyenas, but it's not a common thing, and mother hippos will feed close to the water, and so generally they can get back into the water, which means that the baby doesn't have to be born as big and as developed as something like a rhino that lives on land and has to face hyenas, lions, leopard, wild dogs, all of these deadly animals every single day. So the hippo has a much safer environment, and therefore means that it can come out earlier and feed off its mom's nutritious milk and use that to grow, rather than staying inside and developing to a slightly bigger size to be able to then survive. Oh, there we go, big yawn. Oh, is it a lazy afternoon? You can see an oxpecker there. The oxpeckers will often use these hippos as a raft to drink on, so you'll sometimes find them drinking from there, and then it's probably a good idea, because thinking, so there's a monitor lizard on the bank behind the hippos. Yes. There it is, yes. Well done, whoever spotted that. We were actually talking about this morning if any viewers spot things before the presenters do, and well, there we go. Somebody has just spotted our monitor lizard. I don't know who it was, but well done to whoever that was. I was thinking about it this morning as we were walking. We also had a situation with Tingana where we had looked for him the whole afternoon without any luck, and I was saying goodbye at the end of the show and the credits were rolling, and unbeknown to myself and Craig, who was on camera, Tingana was walking out behind us in the last few seconds, and we had no idea until we went off air, and Tingana was then in the road in front of us, which was quite embarrassing. But it does happen from time to time, especially when we're focusing on certain parts of the frame, and when you're looking at a tiny monitor, when it's glary in the sunlight, it's not that easy to actually see these things. So well spotted, whoever that was. And that's our monitor friend that we had the other day, Seb. I think it is the one that was sticking its tongue out at us and seems to be really enjoying that bank. It's the perfect place to sun oneself, and if danger does come, it can just quickly slither into this water and use that for a point of safety. So it's really got itself into a good area. And it's quite a cool shot, that, of the monitor lizard and the two hippos and the oxpecker. So there we go, 3 species in one frame. Well, there was 3 species in one frame. But you can see the monitor lizard is not perturbed by anything. It's not perturbed by the hippos in any way at all. Now, Natalie, I know you've asked a question, but I just didn't hear it very nicely. So Chantal, if you can repeat that for me. So Natalie, you're asking if we would intervene if a person was being attacked by a wild animal. Well, yes, we would have to, because unfortunately you can't have a situation where you sit here and just stand by while somebody's being killed. That's almost like murdering somebody. So we would have to try and get involved and try and help that person as much as possible, even if it was that person's fault. Even if that person decided to go and swim in this dam with these hippos and got attacked by them, we would still have to try and help them. As people, we have to be a bit more compassionate in this world and try and actually help one another out, rather than just leaving everyone to themselves. And so yes, we would try and interfere, and it would be a very difficult situation, because ultimately, if it is something like a dangerous animal like hippos and elephants and lions and leopards, generally the only way to get rid of that animal is probably going to be to shoot it. So it's a very controversial topic, and one that unfortunately is always very difficult to deal with. Luckily out here it happens so seldom that we don't really have that problem, and we don't really have to think about it too much. But yes, if there's somebody in trouble, we definitely as people have got to go and help them and try and see what we can do. It's much easier to explain to a family from overseas, if it is a guest, that their loved one is safe and sound, than it is to explain that you didn't help at all and that the elephant is alive but their husband or wife or child is dead. Much easier to explain a dead elephant than it is to a person. So we try not to interfere where we can, but it does happen from time to time. So Pokemon guy, you're wondering if hippos get parasites? Yes, they do. So hippos will pick up ticks much like any of the other animals when they walk around at night. Remember, these guys walk through grass all night feeding, and so they pick up a number of ticks. They'll pick up mites, and that's why the oxpeckers are also on them. The oxpeckers do feed off them, so not only do they use them as a raft where they can drink, and obviously it's a great place to drink if you're an oxpecker because you don't have to worry too much about crocodiles leaping onto you if you're sitting on the back of a hippo, but they also do find food there, so they'll find ticks and varying other things. Remember, a tick can be submerged underwater and still survive. They're pretty resilient things. In fact, I read a whole article the other day where they reckon you can wash your clothes every day for 3 weeks in a washing machine and the ticks can still live on there. So it just shows you how resilient they can be. And you'll probably find there's the odd waterborne insect as well, so you might find mosquito larvae that sometimes stick to the hippo's skin as it goes up and down, or varying other types of aquatic insects that may be around that the oxpeckers then can use to feed off as well. So they definitely do get parasites, and that is why you'll find terrapins and oxpeckers both hanging around hippos. Now, we're going to leave probably our hippos and our monitor lizard to enjoy the rest of the afternoon sunbathing and spending time by the pool, and we're going to carry on towards Cheetah Plains and see what we can find out that way. And while we do, let's go see how James Henry is enjoying his sun this afternoon.
Well, it is, yes, quite a hot sunny day out here. We have found a very shady spot though, and were I if I had a mass of about 60 grams, then I might get into this little nest and enjoy the shade. It is the nest of the blue waxbill. It's a very cleverly constructed nest because it is in a thorn tree, and it is therefore relatively safe from potential predators. That said, however, one of the predators that would eat little blue waxbill chicks would be a worm slung or tree snake, and a worm slung, astoundingly, is able to climb a tree like this Ziziphus mucronata, or I've forgotten what the common name is, buffalo thorn tree, despite its quite fearsome thorns. They often build their nests either near or on top of wasp nests, paper wasps, or paper wasps, because of the security they provide. And I've been looking around here hoping to find one, and there don't seem to be any. Can you see a wasp? Craig has got a wasp, everybody. Well done, Craig. Where is it?
Or is it an ant?
It's probably Polyrhynchus.
If you look on the screen...
Right.
Oh, that's a bit out of...
Is it an ant?
I'm not actually sure.
I cannot see it. This is very embarrassing. Which part of the tree is it on?
Just behind, like...
Yes? Yes?
In the
behind the web?
Behind
the nest?
Like down...
Ah. Behind the nest and down. This is very embarrassing. Let me keep looking. Behind the nest and down.
Like sort of to the... like 5 o'clock of the nest.
5 o'clock of the nest.
From where you are.
From where I am. Is it moving? I feel like I'm on a really bad, nightmarish Easter hunt. Now I've got my head caught in the tree. This is horrendous. It's anywhere near my head.
Well, is it a wasp?
Is it, does anybody else see a wasp? Craig is now asking himself. This might be the worst segment I've ever done. I've now completely stuck in the tree. I can't get out of it. Right, let's move on from there. I don't know if it was a wasp or not. And I think from this extreme incompetence we'll head across to the Mara to some much more competent finding of the apex predator there.
Welcome to a windy, hot Maasai Mara, and you saw a reclining male lion underneath that bush. Now, my name is Brent Smith. I have Dangerous Dave on camera. Now, that male lion is something special because he's one of the most famous male lions in the world. His name is Scar, and at the moment he's snoozing where we can't get too close to him, unfortunately, but you can see there's a big herd of buffalo behind him, so who knows, maybe he'll head out hunting a little bit later. Now, he is part of a coalition of 4 male lions that are known as the Musketeers, and they dominate an area around the main Wildebeest migration points, where they cross the Mara River. And let me see if I can remember all their names now. There's Scar, Siku, Morani, and Hunter. I think I got them all. There we go. So great to catch up with one of the most famous lions in the world. Even though he is being not so photogenic at the moment. He looks very comfortable though, I'll give him that. A very comfortable male lion snoozing next to a little gardenia tree. And you can see there's a big sort of Inselberg behind him. And here we go. Now, I'm not 100% sure of all the prides he dominates over at the moment. And there's definitely the Paradise Pride, who I've seen him with before, but we also think he might be in charge of the Mogoro Pride. Although the lion dynamics in this area are constantly in flux at the moment, and there are 6 young males that have arrived from the further to the south, and there are 4 big boys a little bit further to the north from here. So it's difficult to say who's actually in charge and how long they're going to be in charge for. But on the other side of the river, Scar is definitely the big boss at the Paradise Pride. Now, normally, from what I know, we see the Mogoro Pride in this area, but I haven't seen a Mogoro lioness for a while now. But the North Clan of Hyenas has been very, very busy here, so that could have been keeping them away. The Mogoro Pride, I've only ever seen 3 lionesses together. Not to say that there aren't more, but there have been, the North Clan of Hyenas is over 80 hyenas, so they can quite successfully chase off a couple of lionesses. Now, of course, old Scar is not the only thing out here, and one of the most amazing things about the Maasai Mara is the amount of wildlife that's around us. And now we're going to have a look off to this area, and we'll head back towards the lion shortly. But there we've got some Thompson's gazelles with a little bit of a heat haze, and there's also a single topia, I think, a little bit to the right. Here we go. Isn't that stunning? Look at the skies out here today, and it is wonderful. Remember, there are other vehicles out on the safari here, and we are 100% live, coming to you from Kenya's Maasai Mara. So there we go. There's a topi. Hello, topi. Oh, funny looking animals. They sleep in the most ridiculous manner, with either their nose flat on the ground like a dog, or with their nose sticking straight into the ground, looking quite sheepish. Now, the Thompson's gazelles should be giving birth at some point quite soon, so we'll be keeping a close eye on them. Now, apparently the olive baboons here have a real liking for baby Thompson's gazelles and take advantage of the birthing season. Now, of course, they're not the only ones that are going to take advantage. There's going to be lions, leopards, cheetahs, hyenas will all take advantage of any little Thompson's gazelles that wander too far away from mom. Oh, is that a secretary bird there in the distance, Dave? So go off to the right. Keep going. Whoa, sorry, let me just try to get my monitor in the shade. Sorry, guys, give us 1 second. Where was it striding? There, a little bit to the left, center frame. Here we go. Sorry, oopsie, that was my fault. We're right at the end of the lens there. Now that is a secretary bird in the distance. Now, incredible predator themselves. They are incredibly good at killing snakes, and those long legs, they'll use them to kick snakes to death as they go through the long grass. Now, here we go. We'll go have a little bumble around, see what else is around this area. But before we do that, we can go back to that beautiful big male lion, Scar. Because Barbara is asking, how long have the Musketeers been in charge? Well, Barbara, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's about 4 or 5 years. But they've actually moved from the area that they were in charge of around the Marsh Pride and then Tingana Pride, and they were pushed by those young males and have moved into this area around the Paradise Pride. But it's still going to take us a while to learn the comings and goings and history of all these lions. I will be meeting with some of the experts in the next coming weeks, and hopefully we'll be able to have a better understanding. Now, Janet's wondering, why is Scar so famous? Well, Janet, he's just one of the most photogenic, horrible English, Leah Smith, photogenic lions out there. He's got a massive scar over his eye, and he's been pretty well documented by most people coming into the Mara. He was also on a TV show for quite a while. That's where he really got his fame. So that's probably why he's one of the most famous lions in the world. Sorry about the bumps, that's me moving around, and we are, to say, he is quite far off the road, and we can't go any closer to him at the moment, but we are hoping he will get up and move. But I think we might go have a look, see if we can find some crocodiles, some Grant's gazelle, maybe some triple or tipple skirchies, the giraffes, the Maasai giraffe. They're often around here. So we're going to take a little trundle down towards the Mara River, so one of the main crossing points near where I first saw him, and see what else we can find. Hi, Tom. Tom would like to know, how large is the Maasai Mara in comparison to Kruger National Park? Habari. Well, there's a male lion, so we're broadcasting live across the world at the moment, so those little antennas send it out live. There's a male lion in the distance underneath that little bush. Yes. Sorry about that, folks. As I say, there are other people out on safari, so I will be chatting to them from time to time as they come past. But Tom was asking, how large is the Maasai Mara? The Maasai Mara National Reserve itself is 160,000 hectares, which is quite a lot smaller than Kruger Park, but we must remember it is not an ecosystem that stands alone. It is part of the greater Serengeti Mara ecosystem, which offhand, Tom, I mean, I have to get back to you in a little bit. It's getting quite busy here, and everyone's trying to talk to me, and my maths brain is terrible as it is normally, but I think it's around 6 million hectares, but I'll have to double check that. But that's, and you must remember, that's not including all the private concessions and conservancies that surround, which will make it a much, much bigger area. But I will find out those exact figures for you. So guys, we really need to move. It's getting quite busy around here. So while we see what else we can find, let's go have a look at how Mr. Tristan's doing with some great grey pachyderms.
Well, indeed, we have got some great grey pachyderms, Brent, and I'm very jealous about your secretary bird. Secretary birds are one of my favourite birds out here. Now look at this elephant, look how clever she is. You see how she's moving the branches away to be able to get to the food underneath. Now there's some green grass that is growing there that all the other animals are battling to get to, and so for this elephant, it has the strength to push all these thorny branches away and get to that beautiful green grass. And look, baby's in there too now. Isn't that a sweet picture of the two of them with the one underneath the other? That's about as good as it gets. Very, very cool to see the two of them together. Now you can see the third one at the back, so it's just a small group. As far as we can see, it's just this female and the two young ones, and there was a young male off in the distance, but other than that I haven't seen too many others. And what Seb and I were saying is what's incredible about this is that we sat at Twin Dams, we were watching the hippos, we watched the monitor lizard, and not once did we hear these elephants until now. We would have heard them now because they're making an absolute racket. Oh, shame, that little one's just had a thorn tree dumped on its head, unfortunately. The oldest sibling just dumped a thorn tree, and we've got another female coming out of nowhere. Look here, Seb. Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Very cool. These elephants are very close, and there's the tuskless female that I think James must have had this morning. I know James was with the tuskless elephant at some point this morning, so I think it's the same herd. Now, they must have been somewhere in the Mulawati drainage that we didn't notice them at Twin Dams when we first arrived, but they have come out now and we've got them right next to us. This is as good as it gets. Seb and I have these elephants now probably, I would say, not even a sort of 2 meters off the back of the car, and I'm hoping they're going to go to this little mud wallow behind us and have themselves a whale of a time. It is that temperature that you'll find elephants will go into mud. You can see she is covered in mud as it is. And how relaxed is she with her young ones? For a young mom, because she is quite a young mom, to be that cool with being so close to us and her young ones being so close is quite astounding. Now, I think I'm going to just turn around, Seb, so we can actually see all of them, because it looks like they might go for a mud wallow, which will be really cool. Oh, hello, little one. I didn't see you in front of me either. It looks like you only have one tusk. I thought so. I thought that the right tusk may have been broken. What are you doing with your feet? I think it might have an itch on its foot or its toe. And so we're scratching and now having a bit of a rest. You'll find an elephant will rest its foot a little bit as well. Now, a few days ago I was with a herd of elephants, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked me what's the longest journey that an elephant has ever done. And I was actually reading some stuff on elephants a bit earlier today, and in 218 BC there was a group of 37 elephants that did a journey of 2,400 kilometers across Europe. So that's how far they moved. Can you imagine doing 2,400 kilometers? That gives you an idea of just how far an elephant can go. Now, I want to quickly just get into position, because it does look like they might start mud wallowing and throwing of sand and soil and mud and water. So let's try and just get ourselves into a good position here, Seb. Hopefully we're not going to get sprayed by them as well. It does happen. So, Roshni, you're wondering about the elephant's eyelashes and whether or not they're very, very thick. Well, Roshni, it's not that they're very, very thick. Seb, we're going to have to stop here for a little bit, because this little one is going to give a fright if we go too close. They do have very long eyelashes that are not necessarily thick, but what happens with elephants is that they roll in mud and they splash in mud and they throw mud, and the mud often sticks to that eyelash, and then it makes it appear as though it is very, very thick and very, very dense. It's actually more just mud than anything else. They have quite sort of fine eyelashes, much like what they have on their tail. In fact, it's similar looking hair to the tail, and it then collects with mud. So you can see on that elephant there, the eyelashes itself when it turns its head. That's fine, no problem. There's the tail. You can see how that tail is full of mud, but those hairs are actually not very thick at all. It's just that the mud is all caked onto it, and that's the exact same effect that happens with the eyelashes. Now, it's important that they have long eyelashes, much like the giraffe, because elephants feed off quite thorny trees, and when they feed off those trees, the thorns can often get in there. They also love to dust bathe, and so with the eyelashes, it means when those close, it will protect from thorns and sharp branches, as well as dust and dirt and those kind of things getting into the eye and making them sort of get irritations and infections in the eye itself. So vitally important to have long, luscious eyelashes as opposed to short ones like us as people. But this must be a mecca when they come to a waterhole like this with all this green vegetation. So, I didn't catch the name. Sorry, Chantal, if you can just repeat that for me. But I do like this question. So, Rainbow, you are 3 years old. And hello, Rainbow, I hope you are loving watching the elephants. You want to know, do the elephants ever come for a ride in the car? Well, Rainbow, unfortunately not, because if the elephants got into the car, well, Sebastian and I might not be with you anymore. I think they might squash us because they're much bigger than what we are, and there's no real space for them in the car. Also, these elephants are wild elephants, so they don't really like people to be too close to them, and I certainly don't think they would like to sit in a car that bumps around and makes lots of noise. They like to be on their own and do their own thing. So we don't touch the elephants in any way, and we leave them to have a sort of life that they want to do whenever they want. So they don't ride around in the car, but like I say, if they did, they would cause a lot of damage because they're so heavy they would probably break everything in the car and most definitely squash myself and Sebastian. So we're not going to invite them for a ride anytime soon, that's for sure. Right, well, our elephants are still just feeding slowly around, and they have thrown a bit of water, but nothing major. So we're going to see if they're not going to go to a little mud wallow that's off to the south of us. And while we do that, let's go across to Jamie and see how our search for Tingana is going.
This is not Tingana, which I think tells you a great deal about how my search for Tingana is going. So first we saw a log, now we're looking at a wildebeest. Neither of those are leopards, but that's okay. We like wildebeest as well, especially a male in such tip-top form. They really are looking so healthy and shiny and gorgeous at the moment. And, excuse me. And in the sunlight, you can easily see where their other name, the brindled gnu, comes from. You can see the brindling, the stripes, down his neck and down his shoulders. Now this is the Philemon Cutline's gnu. I have not given him a name, unlike Brent, who named Gnormless Gnorman and Normal Norman of Cheetah Plains. I have not given him a nickname. But I do hope that at some point he did have the fortune of having the herd of ladies come and visit him in his territory, because he's different to the quarantine male, who appeared to have all the luck, and that of course is the entire point of being a male wildebeest, is to get the best possible territory where you think there's a good strong chance that the ladies are going to spend quite a lot of time. And unfortunately for this particular chap, as appealing as his territory is, the open area of quarantine outside of our camp, and that's what the clearing is called, has got nice short mown grass, it's got access to water, and hence the ladies have spent far more time there. And at one point, Brent was still here, so about 5 weeks ago, or 6 weeks ago, I happened to see him walking to the top of Philemon's Dip with a very shifty look to his body language. So that's in the direction between his territory and the territory of that other male. And he looked so cautious, at the same time hopeful, sidling up to a territory or into a territory that isn't his, in the hope that perhaps he might encounter a lovely lady or two, or perhaps even just be able to sneak off without being spotted by the dominant bull of that area. I don't know whether he ever came right. He did ultimately the next day have a limp and a bit of a gash. He seems perfectly recovered though. How do I know it's him? You might be asking yourselves. I actually don't really. We know the territorial bulls, we see them every day, but as to whether I would bet my life as to whether or not this is exactly that particular male antelope, I'm not going to go that far. But I think there's a good chance that it is him. Male wildebeest in this area, at least, are territorial. They hold territories, and that's the way that they go. And I think the fact that we drive up and down the stretch of road probably about 4 times a day means that we get to know them quite well. I wonder whether or not he had any luck. I mean, he is between the open area and Treehouse Dam, so he might have got lucky. I agree, Roshni. Roshni says that wildebeest are always so nice to watch. They are, aren't they? We don't spend enough time looking at them. Well, we do actually. No, that's not true. We have actually spent quite a lot of time looking at them. But we do take them for granted. And they're actually, I don't think they're particularly ugly antelope. And especially at this time of the year when they clown around. And then, of course, this is now their breeding season. This is their rutting season. Then, beginning of December, there's going to be a whole load of new little baby wildebeest being born. And that might be something to look forward to as well. Oh no, if Taxon's found this leopard, I'm going to cry. I mean, I won't, but... Standing by, Tax. I'll be there shortly. Tax, I really wanted to see where he was, but I'm also happy to see him too. Have you got him there, Tax? Copy that. I'm on my way. Thank you. Obviously, you heard that conversation. Tax says to me, Jamie, this afternoon, did you want to see where he was, or do you want to see him? And I think we should go and see him. Oh, and Wendy doesn't want to start. Oh dear. Well, at least we've got a leopard, everybody. That is happy news. Apparently, Tack says he's just moved a little bit further west from where he was. Which we shall go and see whether or not Ferg and I drove past him, or if perhaps we didn't and we're not to be blamed. While we go off back to Tingana, perhaps James will have a quiet chuckle while he's wandering around when he hears that story.
I'm not sure. I don't know which story I'm chuckling at, but I'm sure it was very funny if Jamie told it. There we go. There is a grasshopper. It is not quite Shadow, for whom we have been searching fruitlessly, but there's a little grasshopper very well hidden amongst the soil here. And I've been amazed, today's been quite a hot afternoon, probably about 30 degrees Celsius or so, which sits about 85 Fahrenheit. And there's been a huge amount of insect activity, but unfortunately, because of the heat, very little of it will sit still for any length of time, and so most of the time it is doing not what this grasshopper's doing. It's normally flying around or buzzing or faster than you can film it. I did see a very beautiful fly. Yes, that is what I said, and I know in the context of a big game live safari, a beautiful fly might seem like something you wouldn't necessarily look for, and well, I suppose you'd probably be correct, but it was beautiful, and it was very plainly and simply coloured with black and clear wings. I'm not doing it justice. Let's look at the sedge. I like the sedge because it smells like mint, not mint, menthol. Smells like menthol or camphor. Craig, would you like to smell it? There you are. Delightful. It really has got a very nice menthol smell, and here is how it grows. And this particular suite of sedges is growing around the hole of a baboon spider. It was unfortunately closed up shop, and I suspect, here it is, can you see it there, Greg? I suspect that it was probably closed up shop for some time. On a hot day like this it will come out, but I think during the winter it will become a lot less active. And then, Craig, underneath my hand, and you see this tiny little spider here. This is amazing. It's on the tip of this awn. Can you see it there?
Yeah, I can see it.
It's now starting to build a web. It's tiny, and it's sitting on the awn of one of the 3 awn grasses, and it's using the 3 awn as a little support for its web. And I think its other support, if you follow my finger, is on this awn here. That is astounding. Now those awns are very, very delicate, very light, almost wings, that are attached to the seeds of the 3 awn grass. And I just want to get down to its level. And I would never have thought that a little spider would be able to string a web between 2 things like this. But that's what she's doing. You see her there? Now she's about 1.5 millimeters long. Tiny, tiny little thing. Maybe 2 millimeters. And I suppose she'll be hoping to catch very, very small prey. Perhaps the odd very small ant. It just makes me really think about where we step, where we drive our cars, and the number of creatures that we must be driving over, on top of, stomping on as we go. That is a delicate, delicate piece of the universe that we're looking at there, and it almost passed completely unnoticed. It often boggles my mind as to how something that small, and indeed you get spiders half that size, can possibly have components small enough to make it up, if you know what I mean. So the cells must be so very tiny. And I was reading this morning, actually, a really nice analogy for the size of subatomic particles, because of course you think, well, I mean, how many atoms could there be in something so very tiny? If you were to take the atoms in an orange, and this is quite interesting, if you were to bear with me, I know that physics isn't a big thing for safari goers, but bear with me. If you were to take all of the atoms in an orange and make them the size of a cherry, right? So cherry, right? And you were to take all the atoms in an orange and you made them the size of a cherry. The orange would be the size of the Earth. Right? Can you imagine how many atoms there must be, therefore, in an orange? Many is the answer. Over-accountable, as we used to say when we were very little and we didn't know how to express the number. So really, something like that is massive on the scale of the atom. Now, how very appropriate, something much larger and made of many more atoms than that spider is the thing that Tristan is going to show you now.
Well, indeed, James. Far more atoms, I would imagine, in the single tip of a trunk than what you see in that spider. And these particular atoms are loving a little mud wallow. So you've got all the young ones that have come in. The adults are sort of in the fringes, in the bushes, feeding. And all the young ones have come down to the waterhole and are busy playing. And you can see there's a bit of greeting going on between the two on the left. They're touching each other's trunks and giving an elephant handshake. And every now and then you'll find a trunk will go into the other one's mouth. And that's just how they communicate with one another and learn who one another is. So quite a nice scene that. Oh, you two, are you having fun? Oh, I don't think the other one wants to let go. Tesla, who's 6 years old. Well, Tesla, it's good to hear from you, and I know you asked lots of questions, so I'm glad that you're still watching and you're still loving to learn from us, and you want to know how strong an elephant's trunk is. Well, Tesla, that trunk is very, very strong. It's got more muscles than your entire body, which means it can lift very heavy things. And in fact, I've seen elephants lift things that weigh as much as our car does, so with that trunk. So it is a very, 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 very strong tool that they have, and they'll lift branches with it and break branches with it, and they really have a lot of strength inside there. So it's not much stronger than what any of our arms or hands are. They are very, very strong with their trunks. Listen to them talking. And that's because one of the adults has arrived. All the adults are slowly coming now. That has got to be the best sound in the world. Well, one of the best sounds in Africa. I love listening to elephants when they call like this. So cool. See how everyone's stopping to listen? So it just shows you how much they communicate. So, Lynn, you're wondering if I've ever touched an elephant. Well, Lynn, yes, I have. So I've been fortunate enough to touch quite a few elephants. All of them were orphans that had been orphaned by poaching incidents, so where people had tried to hunt the mothers and killed the mothers and left babies by themselves. And I was fortunate enough to touch a lot of those as they were raised back to the wild. And so they have a very sort of abrasive skin in places, especially along the sides. It's quite hard and sort of very, very coarse. But if you touch them around the sort of underside of the trunk, around the eye area, the back of the ears, the skin feels like soft tissue paper. It's very soft and very, very, very supple, and it feels very cool actually, and smooth. So they do have soft skin and hard skin. It just depends on where the body you touch, and it's an amazing feeling. Their skin is a little bit squishy, but it also, you can feel the muscle bulk underneath there as you touch them. There's this very thick, very heavy muscle that really is quite amazing and quite sort of awe-inspiring at just how strong these animals must be with muscle like that. Isn't this cool with the two of them interacting? So, Anwin, you want to know what the most memorable elephant encounter or elephant sighting I've ever encountered? Sure. Well, Anwin, I've had quite a few. So I've had a number of elephant sightings in my life. The one the other day with Sebastian on walk, that was a pretty good one, hey Sebastian? Yes, we had an elephant bull not even 2 meters from us on a walk. It was right in front of us on this termite mound, and we were eye level to this bull, and he was just watching us, so that was pretty incredible. I've seen elephants mating, which is quite something. The elephant giving birth was quite something as well. That elephant, as it gave birth and saw this new little baby come out, that was very, very cool. So I have seen that as well. And then varying just interactions with elephants, watching elephants protect their young ones from predators, things like lion, leopard, wild dogs. As the predators come, the elephants forming these massive circles around the young ones and keeping them at bay. It really is quite incredible just to watch their intelligence. So I've had so many good sightings of elephants. It's actually difficult to remember one single sighting, but I think one that does stand out in my mind that I had recently, that was just from a sheer beauty point of view. I was in Naipans in Botswana, and in Naipans you get these big flat dusty salt pans, and the soil is white, and in the afternoons you get the most magnificent sunsets there because there's no sort of bush or terrain, and there's no change in the altitude of land, and that means that you end up with these situations where the sun gets very low and it makes this sort of orange hue all over the land, and the elephants from being in that area go white from the white salt pans, and that orange light means the elephant almost looks like a pink orange color, and they come and drink, and sometimes you can get them at eye level where you're sitting a little bit lower than they are, and so their feet are at the same height as your eyes, and you've got these massive big elephant bulls, the setting orange sun in the background, and these pink sort of elephants coming towards you. It is the most magical thing I've seen, and just to have nothing between you and hear that as these ghosts appear out of nowhere and then start to come in. The best part about it is when they are on the horizon and they're coming towards you, because of the heat, it's almost like a mirage and it doesn't look quite real, and then slowly but surely they get bigger and more real as they approach you, which is really something very special. So the Naipan elephants was something that I'll always remember as well. But more and more elephants seem to be arriving, which is fantastic news for us. You can see there's a bull that's arrived now, and he's got a very rounded forehead. So this is a great example at the difference between the male and female. So there you can see his forehead is round and almost has this sort of kind of blunted appearance, whereas if we look at the female just to the right of him, you'll see that she has a very flattened, squared off forehead. So there we go. You see that? So, Mesh, you're wondering if we can sex an elephant by the shape of the head. Well, there we go. I've just gone through it. So that female on the right, angular forehead, and the bull that's about to come through, there you can see a very rounded forehead that he has. So very different. Also, look at the size difference between that bull and a lot of those females. He's a much bigger animal. Now, he might come a little bit closer. Bulls are often quite curious animals, so you might find he comes up and just sees. But you can see that he actually has lost a tusk as well. So just there we go. One tusk is broken off, which is quite common in bull elephants. Just watching him as he comes past, you can see he had a slight turn to us, and you look, he's using his trunk just to sniff us, make sure that we're not any sort of threat, and then he's going to carry on. But I think he's going to go for a mud wallow of his own. There is a mud wallow behind us, and I think he's going to go make use of his own because there's far too many babies around doing their own thing. Now, I believe Jamie's got great news and has managed to find what she's been searching for this afternoon. So let's go across to her and see what spots lie in the bush.
We are indeed. Oh, excuse me. I don't know what's making me cough today. Every time I try and speak to you, I get a frog in my throat. Right, so we've got the gorgeous Tingana. There's the eye of the leopard. It's closed at the moment, which is pretty much to be expected. And there is the massive head of the dominant male leopard of this area, Tingana. And he really is massive. He's absolutely huge. I've just been sitting here because I'm quite close to him at this point, and I'm just sitting here thinking, I wonder how much he actually does weigh. I'm keeping my voice down, not because it's going to bother him too much. He's not going to be afraid of it. But at the same time, I feel he looks so peaceful, sleeping like that. I actually don't really want to disturb him. So I'm just going to talk softly for the time that we spend with him. And you know, in about half an hour's time, he's actually probably going to get up and start to call. Well, no, 4:30, maybe not. I'm trying to decide whether or not we should stick with him for the entire sunset safari or if we should go and come back. But I think it might be worth sticking with him. and just enjoying his company. And in this particular area, there's lots of potential food around. He doesn't look particularly full either. I don't know what he was looking like this morning with James. But an antelope or anything like that could come through for a drink at Treehouse Dam. And leopards, like all predators, are opportunists. And if something does come through, there's a very good chance he will go for it. And he's so perfectly hidden where he is. The nice thing is, I don't feel so bad because he isn't anywhere where we looked. We did not look in this particular spot. So it's not like Ferg and myself drove past him, thank goodness. Otherwise, I would have wept from shame. So we didn't miss him. We just didn't exactly drive the right spot. Hey, sleepy boy. Are you happy there? So for our new viewers, Tingana is probably the big male leopard that we see most often. And we occasionally see his sort of rival neighbors, Mvula and Anderson male, and very occasionally Djuma male leopard. But Tingana's got a territory that stretches through Simbambili, down Arathusa, into Hoffman's, across Hoffman's into Little Gowrie, Vessels, Cheetah Plains, back up through Torchwood and across Djuma. And that is complete Greek to, well, not quite Greek, none of those names are actually Greek, but that's completely unintelligible to our new viewers. But suffice to say, I mean, if I had to try and work that out, Djuma's 1,200 hectares. Arathusa is not quite as large. I would say he's got a territory of about 6,000, maybe even 8,000 hectares, which is quite extraordinary. It's an absolutely massive, massive territory. Oh, big yawn and a wake up. Now, I think we should send you back on through to the Mara because it sounds as though Brent has got some really amazing antelope to show you.
Some Eland! And there we go. And a lovely little group of female Eland. And I haven't seen them this close to the river before. So maybe as the season is changing, they're going to move down from the highlands, like around our camp where we've actually been seeing a lot of Eland, and come down to the river. They are quite skittish, as you can see. Now, there's a very interesting reason why Eland are so skittish, and it's quite a lot to do with human beings. Now, of all animals, they have the furthest flight distance from a human being, and there's a very important reason for that. And they are the only animal a human being can probably run down. So they're not very fast, and they don't have very good stamina. So they can keep up a slow speed or walk for a vast distance. Oh, lost the rest of them. But a human being can run down an eland. And so when they generally see human beings or get a slight fright, they will run up to sort of 500-600 meters away, before turning around to look at you. Oh, we've got some Tommies and Impala here still. Where there is other animals, like the Tommy, who knows it's got some speed on its side, will generally run a much shorter distance before turning around and checking what's chasing it. Oh, we even have a Grant's gazelle as well. Yeah, a nice big male Grant's. So, 2 gazelles named after 2 different Scottish explorers. Grant, who that gazelle is named after, was part of the Speke and Burton mission to the Mountains of the Moon, where they discovered the source of the Nile. Hang on a second, what's that? Just hang on. All the animals. Maybe it wasn't us who gave the eland a fright. I just want to have a quick look up onto the ridge. There's impalas. Everyone's looking quite carefully towards the edge of that tree line. You see anything, Dave?
Not yet.
I see 2 blackback jackal. You see the blackback jackal?
Yep.
Okay. Now, just have a look. There's a Thompson's gazelle She was running towards the jackals. I wonder if she doesn't have a baby hidden in the grass there somewhere. And she seems to have stopped now. And jackal's just getting moving. Now, we get both black-backed and side-striped jackal here. Now, when you do see jackal, they tend to follow the hyenas and lions quite a lot here. So I'm just double-checking with the binos, making sure that there isn't a lion or hyena around. See that Thompson's gazelle going closer and closer to the jackals, just to the left, Dave. So there's a jackal. The jackal to the left. There we go. See, there's that Thompson's gazelle. Now, she took off towards where those jackals are, which makes me wonder if she hasn't got a baby hidden in the long grass, and she's worried that those jackals might find it. This is very, very fascinating. Oh dear, Dave, are you ready for a challenge? Oh, is it going to fly out of shot? You see it? It'll be a new bird for lots of people. A Montague's harrier. Oh no, come back, Montagues! Turn towards us. You got him. No, he's disappeared. Sorry about that. Well, we do see them quite often. And now that Thompson's gazelle has trotted past the jackals. And so she's obviously decided that if she does have a baby hidden, it is safe. It's so wonderful. There's so much game around here. And remember, this is the quiet season. Now, someone was asking, why are there more Thompson's gazelles than Grant's gazelles? And, well, it just depends on where you are, but the Tommies are more numerous than the Grants. But the interesting thing about Grant's gazelles is they actually almost have a reverse migration. So when the Wildebeest, the migrating Tommies, and the zebra arrive, the Grants go the opposite direction. They really don't like the busy savannas. And they seem to be more common in slightly drier areas. So there we go. But there are a few of them around. They're more on the other side of the river. Oh, ostriches, Dave. Big flock of ostriches. On the way. So there we go. There was James was asking about that question about Grants and Tommies. So they tend to prefer a slightly more arid area. They're more common in Tanzania. That's a bit drier than the Mara. And as I said, they tend to have a reverse migration. They tend to shy away from the big migration. And as I said, I'd say in this area it's just because of it being a lot wetter here. There's a nice group of ostriches. Oops, sorry. You can see a safari vehicle. Oh, even bedecked with zebra stripes. Nochal. Now, Nochal is a very South African saying. It means, what does it mean? And all. Indeed, and all. Can you believe? Zebra stripes on a Land Cruiser. Not the strangest striped vehicle I've seen. Okay, well, let's go get a little bit closer to those ostriches. It's going to take us a little while to get there. We do have to watch our time at the moment, so we do have to be out of the park by 6:30. So I'm going to have a quick gander down towards the ostriches. We'll do a quick swing past Scar, see if he's stood up. If not, we'll head to see if we can find any of the Ngama ladies around the base of the hill. So, exciting times. Oh, I can hear some crowned cranes honking away as well. Those beautiful birds with a terrible voice. Honk, honk. Well, we can only hear them, not see them. So let's go to something that's so big, hopefully Tristan doesn't miss it, back on Djuma.
Well, we're still with our Ellies and they're still providing a lot of entertainment. They're all in the mud wallows and waterways and playing, and this big bull has just had himself a bit of a mud bath, and so he's nice and cool. You can see how wet those ears are at the moment, and he's flapping them now just to get a breeze over the ears and actually cool himself down. But isn't this scenic? There's green grass, blue water, blue skies, elephants on the dam wall, elephants all below it, It really is quite a nice scene that has been laid before us, and very, very pleasant just to sit here and listen to them in silence. It's always so nice. Sometimes when we go off air, Seb and I just sit here and we listen and you hear the mud being thrown and the elephants just slowly moving around you. It really is quite something quite special. It's not every day you're going to have Ellies that are looking much bigger than you at that age. Now that they're on the dam wall, they look quite mighty. And there goes our big male. He's off again, back towards the females by the looks of it. And there's two troublemakers coming down the dam wall, I think, Seb. They look like they're about to cause trouble, don't they? Ears are out. They look like two brothers that are going to be naughty somewhere. I feel like a monitor lizard and a hippo is about to get the wrath of two youngsters playing. No, we've decided to settle down a bit. But you can see, look how the ears are out. They've definitely noticed that the hippo's in the water and probably seen that monitor lizard as well. And that's maybe why they're flaring their ears like that. Oh, no, not too sure about these hippos without mom. So off we go again. All bark and no bites by the looks of it with these two. It's very cool how they're both in sync there while they're walking. They've both got the exact same gait. Typical of young males, always up to something. You see how they mimic their moms though, with their ears out and flaring, making themselves look bigger, heads are up. They're not sure what to make of these two large animals in their water. They want to go down and drink and play probably, and now there's these two big objects and they're very unsure as to how to handle this. And this little one's decided, I'm going to try and see if I can get a little bit closer. Look at the one down at the bottom here, Seth. So, John, the purpose of the tusks is twofold. One is protection, so they're going to use it to defend themselves from other elephants, particularly the males, when they're establishing dominance. They'll use those to establish dominance and protect themselves, and from predators like lion and leopard. If they corner one of them, they'll definitely use the tusk to gouge and gore them. The other reason that they have tusks is for feeding, and so what you'll find is they'll dig those tusks in, and probably the prominent reason they have a tusk is to be able to then dig up roots and also break off bark. So they'll shove their tusk into a bark area and then they just strip these sheets of bark off and are able to feed off that cambium layer. So it's definitely more about the bark than anything else, and like I say, the fact that they can use it to defend themselves is also a plus side. Now I wonder if our big bull is going to go and have a mud wallow. They all keep threatening by walking past that mud wallow, but none of them are actually going to it. So I want to just quickly loop around and just see if he is going to do it. Seb, are we good to go at the back there? Yep. Go. Just going to quickly get around the corner here just to see if he hasn't gone to that mud wallow. Just want to see, because a big bull like that will often have a really good time in mud, so it will be worth just quickly checking around the corner. But I think he might have already gone past it. Let's have a look. Oof, he's walking slowly past it by the looks of it. Yes, he's walking past. So now that he's walking past it, let's go across to James Henry, who's got something infinitely smaller but very deadly.
Look everybody, it's a little praying mantis, and it's standing atop a termite mound. Craig said when he spotted it, it looked like it was the king of the castle, and then he used the term, before it went all freak show on us, which what he means by that quite astonishing admonition is that it walked off this thing and went wandering around, and then it walked back on, thankfully, and is now sitting in glorious light. And I think what it's doing here is eating ants. I think that's what it's come here to do. There is an ant nest not far, we'll show it to you just now, but it's sitting on top of a termite mound that is long, well, probably not very long, but quite long deceased, or quite long dormant. And I think it's probably dormant because of the ants that are just nearby. Now, looks like it's going to spring at you, Craig. We did find tracks of Shadow and Cub. They have gone on to Arathusa, unfortunately. We are just doing a little walk there to see if we can't find where they've gone, but I don't think we're going to. and so we're probably going to have to head back onto Djuma fairly soon. Here's the ant nest, and I think she, with her beautiful camouflage, is probably sitting around this ant nest waiting for the ants to come out, grabbing them and then devouring them as she goes. Now, she is not the only creature around here other than the ants. And of course, when you start looking at a thing like this, you start to find all sorts of interesting things. And, oh, there it is. You see it there, Craig? It's a tiny little grasshopper just in front of my finger there. You see it?
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the theraclid grasshoppers. And I say that because it's got such very short antennae, which is characteristic of that family of grasshoppers. And it's beautifully disguised as a piece of soil, which is very clever because, well, very few things like to eat soil, really, but there are some. But I think anything that ate that would not be mistaking it, or wouldn't want to mistake it for a piece of soil. They would definitely have noticed that it wasn't a piece of soil. Isn't that spectacular? Tiny little thing, probably only about, I don't know, 9 millimeters long, just slightly under a centimeter. Very small. And then, now I'm really going to test you, Craig. Coming up onto the top of the mound, you see that little thing there? It was a tiny little velvet ant. You see it there? That's a velvet ant, everybody, and what that will be doing is a wasp. It'll be looking to lay its eggs somewhere around here. That's the female? It's gone now. Chantal, I'm sorry, I missed. Who are we linking to? We're going to head back across to Brent Leo Smith. I think he possibly has jackals in Eland.
You can see the males are all bright red, and they're all fighting over the ladies. And there was some interesting dancing. Hopefully they do some of the dances again. And I actually saw one of the males almost hiss at another male as soon as he got too close to his chosen female. And like a lot of the animals in the Mara, the impala, and lots of other creatures, there's no warthog, for example, there's no set breeding season for the ostriches, although there does seem to be a little peak during the rains, but they can give birth at any time of the year here. So this is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. 14 false thrace in a row. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 males, 7 females. But it looks like some males have got more girlfriends than one, and the other males have to do with none. There we go, you can see that red sheen on the ostrich's legs, neck and beak, indicating breeding plumage. Here we go, the world's largest bird. Now, you can see those formidable legs. Not only are they capable with great speed with those legs, they're capable of inducing great injury to predators. There's a massive claw on there, and although they do get eaten by lions and cheetah and even leopard, you have to be a skilled hunter to take down a male ostrich. There we go, some impala in the background. This is definitely the biggest group of ostriches I've seen so far. Although, fair enough, a lot of the other groups of ostriches I've seen have been long way in the distance. That's stunning. Well, let's try to get a bit closer to them. And remember, I'm dropping down to my turret, so I'll wave at you as we drive. Yay! Hi, see, there's ostriches over there. Oh. Sorry, I didn't quite get that question. Can we have it again? I sat on my comms. Hi, ostrich. Repeat would like to know, why do the ostriches walk in a line? Well, I think in this circumstance they're just following the other, but they don't always walk in a line. Quite often they'll be spread out feeding. I think it could be to do with the competition over breeding at the moment, and the females just trying to get away and the males all following. So there we go, we're getting closer to them now. I'm going to stop in a second. There's some giraffe on the horizon as well. They're such funny looking creatures, the ostrich. Hi Natalie. Natalie's wondering, how fast can an ostrich run? Natalie, very fast. They can get up to 70 kilometers an hour when they need to, but it's the acceleration that's impressive, and also the fact that they can keep that speed up for quite some time. There we go. Oh, go down to the back. There's that female wandering off course. Let's see if the male follows her, but there we go. No, he's sticking with her, not letting her out of his sight. Ooh, I think we're going to get a very pretty shot with tipple skirchies in the distance and ostriches passing through with the horizon coming up there. Look at that. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? Remember, hashtag Safari Live if you've got any questions for any of us, whether it be in South Africa or in Kenya. This is 100% live and we would love to hear from you. You can see it's quite a windy day. Lots of wind coming through. But we've had a fantastic day out so far. Even though we didn't get the best view of Scar, at least we saw him. And the person who told me where he was one of the Ngama guides, said he was looking quite well. Hunter is wondering, what do ostriches eat? Hunter, they eat grass, insects, and believe it or not, even stones sometimes to help with their digestion. Oh, the Tommies are off. What are they off on? They're just off on a run, I think. A gallop for joy. Off they go. Go, little Tommies, go! And now the ostriches are moving further off towards the tipple skirchies, standing on the horizon. And I think we're going to head back towards Mr. Scar, see if he's made a move. If not, we're going to start getting on the long dusty road back towards Angama and the Ololo escarpment. Beautiful. Nanny's wondering why some of the ostriches are lighter colour than the others. The ones with the black feathers and the red, Nanny, are the males, and the grey, lighter coloured, slightly more drab, less dashing, are the females. Now that's quite common in the bird world, where the males are often more striking than the females, as they need to attract the females towards them, whereas the females don't necessarily need all that bright coloration, because the males will chase them regardless. Isn't that lovely? Ostriches, Maasai giraffe, and Thompson's gazelle. Okay, I think we're going to get moving now as they head off into the distance. And as Dave slowly zooms out, we're going to jump a quick couple of 1,000 miles back to South Africa to see what Jamie's up to.
Isn't that amazing, the ability to jump a very long distance instantly with just a push of a button? So, what do I have for you? Obviously not Tingana. I've made space for other vehicles to go and see him, and hopefully we'll get back to him towards the end of the sunset safari, when he's most likely to be up about and calling, doing that deep sawing call. Now the reason we're rushing in the direction that we're rushing in is because James has just called me to let me know that he's got tracks for Shadow and her cub where we left them this morning. So just to update you, for those of you that missed the sunrise safari, this morning Tristan tracked Shadow and her cub into here. I tracked Shadow alone out into Arathusa. So she left her cub in there, which means she's killed something and come back to fetch the cub and has taken the cub to a kill. And that's why I'm racing in this direction, to see. I dare not even get my hopes up at this stage. I've had such bad luck with Shadow recently, and I still haven't seen her cub. But let's just go for it. Let's do it. Let's try it. Can we do this? Yes, we can.